This graphic. When scoring over 30 last year, the Bengals won 3 games and lost 4. The rest of the NFL won 96 games and lost 10.
Yeah.
So it tied the record for the most such losses.
Joe Burrow's fault?
AFC North predictions are coming up. But, Brew, how dangerous are the Bengals?
Moderately dangerous.
Moderately.
They could make the playoffs. With that offense, they could. And Nick, I know you've talked about it's going to be hard to duplicate that offense.
Yeah.
They were only 6th in scoring offense last year. 27 a game.
That's
right?
a fair point.
They could
Yeah,
definitely average
that's
27 or more. Now, that was the most they've ever averaged with Burrow, but still, they could do that. And I think their defense will improve enough where they'll have a chance for the playoffs. But that's why I say moderately dangerous, because if they get there, Baltimore, Kansas City, and Buffalo are all going to have top of the league defenses, top 10 defenses. And so I think those defenses will not let Burrow score every time he has the ball, which they're going to have to do a lot of to win some of these games. Whereas Cincinnati's defense will have more trouble stopping those 3 quarterbacks. So I think if they get to the playoffs, one of those teams will beat them because of the defense.
I think this is a very dangerous team. Last year, they were a dangerous team because we identified they can score. This team can score. It's like going to a fight and you got your crew with you, and you get into a fight, and I'm with Nick. Nick decides not to fight.
You might get in a fight. If you go out with Nick, you might get in a fight.
We get into a fight, and Nick don't want to fight with me.
I would fight with you.
I'm not saying you wouldn't. I'm saying you don't.
Okay.
And then going.
I don't know how much
the next time I go, just like the Bengals this year, I already got in my mind he not gonna fight, so I got to do a little bit more. That's the Bengals. That's the Bengals. When you listen to T Higgins, he's not even thinking about his defense anymore. Last year it was frustrating. Defense, man, hit somebody. Now they don't even look. We just gonna outscore you. When you have that mentality, I was on a team that averaged 35 points a game in 2011 with the Packers. We went 15-1 that year. We didn't win it all. Yeah. Clearly, you guys know, but it was that mindset. We didn't care what the defense did. It doesn't matter. We're going to outscore you. That just was our mentality and philosophy. I know they presented that last year, but they were frustrated because they were hoping their defense
Can they win the AFC like that? I agree they can be dangerous, but can they win the AFC as they are?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I like that.
So, and
I like that a lot.
Just to be clear, I would fight with you. I'm not claiming I'm a great fighter, but I think got some experience.
I think he's saying
he's
it's
a
not
willing
about
fighter.
You're trying hard. He's just saying you're not going to be that efficient when it comes to
No, that's not what he was saying.
No,
He knows after a few seconds
he's got to do a little bit more.
Last year they
showed up and the defense was like, "We're out of here. You're on your own." And so now they're showing up and they're like, "All right, I got to know." And I'm just saying I wouldn't be that guy. I'm just letting you know. I'd be in this analogy. I'm Trey Hendrickson. I'm giving my all. I'm still good for it. But all right, now, listen. Brew has brought up. I have brought up Drew Brees in relation to Brock Purdy, and Brew has brought up, listen, Drew Brees went 7-9 a bunch of times. I think that applies more to Joe Burrow than to Purdy, which is this is not an indictment on Burrow or that offense, but 3 straight years. Drew Brees averaged 5,000 yards a season, 34 touchdowns, a 100 passer rating. 7-9, 7-9, 7-9. Now, nobody dare question Sean Payton's coaching. We would not do that like we do Zach Taylor. However, I'm just saying, you didn't. There's nothing you could do. You only was allowed to coach the one side of the ball. I don't know why they changed the rules, I guess. I don't know. But that, to me, is more applicable in that we are typically, if you have a quarterback that good, your team is just in it. But not always. No, right. And Brees is a great example of it. And so your guys' team with Aaron, I know you guys didn't have a great defense, but you guys lost a tough playoff game. You guys were a great team. This feels, to me, a lot of like do it all over again, and to where, yes, Brew, last year people thought they were dangerous. There was a whole media cycle of the Chiefs are scared of them. The Chiefs are going to throw the Week 18 to prevent these guys from getting in the playoffs.
You know, it's kind of crazy though, because Nick also continued to have the Bengals as a higher up team, and everybody was freaking out, and he abandoned that until they started saying that that the Chiefs should be afraid of him. Then he went all in on trying to pull down the Bengals. But what Greg said there was 100% accurate. And I wholeheartedly agree with that. What Nick is saying about Drew Brees and that offense and what they had, it was a different era. Defense mattered so much more back then than it did now. I always emphasize this all the time. The rules were different. They were fundamentally different. The size of like linebackers was different, which I think actually John Middlecoff talked about that recently. The rules were different. The approach was different. Like everything was different. So I'm just not going to compare to. Now, to be fair, we kind of had this peak, whatever, I can't tell you what the exact window of time was. But it was essentially with like the Mahomeses and Lamars and whatnot, and the tail end of Brady, where it felt like defense just didn't matter at all. It was just like, okay, defense doesn't matter, and they changed the rules. It was offense. They were throwing all over the place. But we kind of now swung back. So I'm not going to act like we're still in that peak, like your defense could be trash and it doesn't even matter. You're going to win a lot of games, as the Bengals proved that. So at this point in the NFL, you need a competent defense. I don't think you can reliably win with a bad defense, but you need a competent defense. And if your defense is going to give up a lot of points, like they need to be good at least getting to the quarterback, or they need to get some decent field position for your offense, some turnovers. Like they can still give up a lot of points, but they need to still somehow to help out your offense now in a way. Right? I always talk about complementary football, although that's like kind of the other side of complementary football. And so that's really all you're asking this Bengals defense to do. But when you do see that those numbers, it is pretty stunning. It is pretty stunning. I mean, this is a massive sample size. This is a massive sample size. And you can see. So that's why ever blaming Joe Burrow for them not winning is just hilarious. Anytime people are like, the Patriots game. It's like, okay. Like, talk about being disingenuous. So it's pretty remarkable. Now, here's what's interesting. Everyone's all on the whole thing of like, oh, well, the Chiefs were 11-0 in one-score games, and the Commanders were whatever the heck they were in one-score games, and you can't expect them to do that again, right? That seems like everyone's take. And I push back on that, to be fair. But now the question is, are they really going, if they score 30 or more points again in 7 games, do you really think that they're going to lose, that they're going to win less than half those games again? When the NFL went 96-10. I mean, that is such a massive difference. It's actually almost kind of difficult to see how massive of a difference that is. To the point where if this was like actual data where that it actually really mattered, like if it was like, I don't know, you're doing like an actual legitimate experiment, you would have to run like certain analysis that would remove that from it because it's too much of an outlier. We throw around those words like it's an outlier, and as I don't think people really truly understand like what an outlier can do to data and why you need to control for them when it, like I said, when you're actually dealing with data that like actually matters, like lives are at stake here, which obviously it's not for football. But this is so insanely counter to what the rest of the NFL has. It's pretty remarkable. I mean, like, it's stunning. It is. from just like from a straight stat standpoint, you're just like, this is wild. Which is why I went back and I was like, I really need to see how Joe Burrow's season unfold. That's why during the summer in like, I forget, in July or whatever, I was making all those Burrow videos because I was like, I didn't even understand, to be fair, just how amazing Joe Burrow was last year. What he did. Putting up all those numbers, having all those games where he was just absolutely balling, terrible O-line. T. Higgins missing a third of the season. Like, it was remarkable to me. And I was like, this is actually one of the best seasons of quarterbacking we've ever seen. It was pretty breathtaking. And it's pretty crazy that they don't make the playoffs and he gets the blame. Or we then try to twist the narrative. Either we want to blame him for games that he balled and put up like 30 or so points but still lost, or they want to blame him for just essentially not being perfect game after game after game and not putting up 30 points against the Patriots or something. Or they want to say that it just doesn't matter. He's the quarterback. It's on him. And it's like, come on. I mean, look at this. Like this disproves that more than anything. And it's a frustrating narrative when people will say, oh, well, you put up all these points because they were down by so much. And it's like, that's not how those games unfolded. A lot of them were back and forths. So those stats were not inflated. Joe Burrow needed to do what the game asked him to do. They weren't down by 3 scores going into the fourth quarter. And so now, of course, Joe Burrow is just throwing all over the field and in easy prevent defense went on. Like that's not how the Bengals got there. And even if some of that data was within that, you can see that would have to then be the case for the rest of the NFL, and you could see 96-10. You could still see the win percentage of 906. So even if you're just looking at all of this together, it's just miles away from each other. I keep saying the word breathtaking because it is. So you have to ask yourself, can the Bengals defense be as historically bad or historically holding back their offense again? I don't know. I think not. I think if this defense could just even be remote. But this is what's interesting about Higgins, and this is what Greg was talking about, where they're just like, we're going all in on offense. Like, we know now from the jump that we cannot rely on our defense, special team, whatever it is, that we are in the driver's seat here. And it's a shame that he used kind of an analogy about like fighting and stuff, because I just think that it was a funny analogy, and it's funny to bring in Nick out there, in that whole thing. I don't think Nick would abandon Greg. I think he'd be Van Gundy on the ground, grabbing the feet. But I wish Greg gave more of like an athlete's perspective from that, because that is what he was saying, right? Like there's times, right, that you go into a game or you're going into a season, and you just know, like, oh yeah, it's all on me, or it's all on me, Mike and Joe, man. Like the rest of this team does not have it. Like, especially for anyone who's played competitively, and you don't really do this as much in football, but if you're doing this more commonly, like I guess like soccer, baseball, basketball, where if you're playing for multiple teams, and a lot of times you're going to be playing for some great teams, and then you'll have like some of these other leagues that are just kind of there to keep you fresh, they keep you playing, whether it be like some summer leagues, intramural, like whatever it is, depending on what age you're at. And sometimes you're playing on like your main team, where that matters, that obviously matters the most. That's where you're going to continue your trajectory to ideally get to college and beyond. But then you have some of the other teams, and there's times that you're playing on teams where you're just like, yeah, this is not it. And you look around, you're like, I cannot rely on that guy, can't rely on that guy, this guy shouldn't even exist. I don't even know how you're a person here. And like you just do it. And again, it's definitely a lot less common in football because you don't have that same it's just by the nature of football, it's just not that trajectory. So maybe Greg doesn't have too much direct experience with that. I guess he's but I still look at it from the perspective of, like I always say, you can't lie to athletes. You can only lie for so long. And a coach can only send a message for so long. And there's definitely some brainwashing. I always talk about there's absolutely undeniably brainwashing. But once you get to a certain point, you can't. And once you get to a certain level of greatness, of talent, like no one's been able to lie to Joe Burrow because he's been great from the jump. He's been special from the jump. So like, you know, like you can't trick him. A coach can't tell him, hey man, as long as you do your job, don't worry, defense is going to come around. Like, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. And like once upon a time, and maybe when you're a little bit younger, or if you're at a little bit lower of a level in terms of how great you are, like, yeah, you can buy into that. But like, you're not going to be able to tell lies to T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, and Joe Burrow. No messages. There's no brainwashing that can endure there. Some of the other players on the team, for sure. Not Joe Burrow, not T. Higgins, not Jamar Chase. They've had too much success. They're too great. They're too special, and they see the reality too clearly. And again, in a way, that is what Greg was saying, albeit in a weird, funny metaphor. And so I wonder what that does, because if there's one thing that we do know, though, it's not a matter of just will. And again, to be fair, I agree with Greg where I think the Cincinnati Bengals are genuinely dangerous. And I think they were going to be genuinely dangerous in the playoffs. I'm not saying that the Chiefs were afraid of them or anything like that. I don't believe in that either. But I do think that the Bengals were, you know, Joe Burrow is special. That season was special. And I understand what Bruce's saying, where it's just like, it doesn't matter how special you are. Like, your defense needs to kind of hold up their end of the bargain here. And so it makes his life harder, undeniably, especially if the Chiefs' defense is legitimate and the Ravens' defense is legitimate and the Bills, right? Like, that's all fair and makes sense. But really, you would just then be banking on this Bengals offense to be exceptionally special, where they can overcome a higher quality defense and still put up points in ways to make up for the fact that their defense will struggle to stop a Ravens, a Bills, and the Chiefs. And the problem for the Bengals is when you're in the playoffs, it's late in the year, obviously, or early in the year, January, February, you know, whatever. And it's cold, it's snowy, the ball's heavy. Like, it's just different now. And so that ends up hurting you. And if there's a way for the Bengals to have like I'm trying to think, I guess like if they could play like in Houston in the AFC Championship game or something, or LA, right, with the Chargers, or, you know, one of those situations, like that would bode well for them. That would bode well tremendously for them. But yeah, if you're in Cincinnati, or you're in Baltimore or Kansas City or Buffalo, it's cold, it's freezing, as we've seen now year after year after year. Even if it's not snowing, you see flurries in the air. Like, it's harder now for your defense, for your offense to just absolutely ball at the levels that it maybe would have needed to do throughout this season. So I don't know. But I'm hopeful. I'm definitely optimistic, and I know they're gonna. I'm recording this before I do their. I think they're doing the AFC North predictions and whatnot, and I'm incredibly optimistic for the Bengals. I really am. I still think it's fair to say that the Ravens are in that driver's seat because they should be a more complete team, and their margin of error is just a canyon relative to what the Bengals have to deal with, because of their defense. But I guess I'm still somewhat hopeful that their defense will just be competent, a lot more competent than they were last season. But I don't know, man. I don't know. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about the Cincinnati Bengals offense and what they need to do? Do you believe that they're actually do you think that they're legitimately dangerous this coming season? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me. Either way, let's get in some discussions. Let's get in some fights. But ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to. Something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.